Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The smell of garlic and rosemary filled the kitchen as I pulled the roasted chicken from the oven. It was Molly's favorite, paired with a side of roasted vegetables and a bottle of her preferred red wine. I placed the meal on the table with care, arranging everything just so. Dinner had become a quiet ritual in our house, a place where I tried to bridge the ever-growing gap between us. Molly walked in, still wearing her office attire, her hair perfectly pinned back. She gave me a tired smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Smells good," she said, setting her bag down by the door. "Thanks," I replied, taking my seat across from her. The table felt larger than usual, as though the distance between us had grown along with the silence that had started to take root in our home. As we began eating, I tried to make small talk. "How was work?" She shrugged, stabbing a piece of chicken with her fork. "Busy. A lot of reports to get through." Her answers had become shorter lately, her tone clipped. It was hard to tell if it was work stress or something deeper. I tried convincing myself it was just the stress of her new client, a demanding account she'd been assigned a few months back. But the cracks in her story were becoming harder to ignore. The phone on the counter buzzed, its screen lighting up briefly. Molly's eyes darted toward it, then back to her plate. Her fingers tightened around her fork. "I'll get that later," she said, too quickly. I nodded, though my stomach churned. Something was wrong. I had noticed it weeks ago, the way her demeanor changed. She was quieter, more distracted, and often on her phone late into the night. At first, I thought it was work emails or maybe an old friend reconnecting. But the truth lingered like a bad taste in the air, unspoken, yet suffocating. After dinner, Molly excused herself, saying she had work to catch up on. I lingered at the table, staring at the empty wine glasses. The house was quiet except for the faint clicking of her laptop keys upstairs. I glanced at her phone, still on the counter where she had left it. The screen lit up again, revealing a text notification: "Nick, can't wait to see you tomorrow." My heart stopped. A wave of nausea washed over me as I read the name and the message. My hand trembled as I picked up the phone, my mind racing to connect the dots. Nick. She'd mentioned him before, a new colleague who had joined her team. I remembered her describing him as confident and fun to work with, but she had dismissed him as just another coworker. Now, staring at the screen, I realized there was more to the story. I put the phone down and sat back in my chair, my chest tightening with each passing second. Was this why she had been so distant? Why our conversations felt hollow and why she seemed more invested in her phone than in me? The pieces were starting to come together, but I needed more. I couldn't confront her without proof, not when my only evidence was a single text. The next morning, I started paying closer attention. I watched her as she got ready for work, noting the extra time she spent on her appearance. Her perfume seemed stronger, her lipstick more vibrant. When she kissed me goodbye, it felt obligatory, as though she was checking a box before rushing out the door. As soon as she left, I began digging. I logged into our shared phone account and scrolled through her call history. Nick's number appeared over and over again, late-night calls, some lasting for hours. My heart sank further as I scrolled through her messages, each one confirming my worst fears. They weren't just coworkers, they were something more. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't focus on anything else that day. At work, I found myself staring blankly at my computer screen, replaying every interaction with Molly over the past few months. Had there been signs I missed? Times when she had hinted at her unhappiness? Or was I simply blindsided? That evening, I didn't say a word about what I'd found. Instead, I acted normal, made dinner, asked about her day, pretended everything was fine. Inside, though, I was unraveling. I couldn't bring myself to confront her, not yet. I needed more than texts and call logs. I needed to see it with my own eyes. The following week, Molly announced she had to attend a work retreat. "It's last minute," she said, avoiding eye contact. "I'll be back Sunday." I nodded, pretending to believe her. "Sounds important." "It is," she replied, her tone too casual. "Nick and I are presenting together, so it's kind of a big deal." I forced a smile. "Good luck, then." When Friday rolled around, I watched as she packed her overnight bag. She hummed to herself as she folded her clothes, oblivious to the storm brewing in my mind. When she kissed me goodbye, I almost stopped her, almost told her I knew. But instead, I let her leave. As soon as she was out the door, I grabbed my car keys and followed her. She didn't head to the office as she claimed. Instead, she drove downtown, parking outside a boutique hotel. I watched from a distance as she entered the lobby, her smile bright and animated as she greeted Nick. I stayed in the car for what felt like hours, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The truth was undeniable now, glaring and unrelenting. Molly was cheating on me. That night, I checked into the same hotel. I didn't sleep. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, replaying the events of the day in my head. The Molly I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who lied with ease, someone who could betray me without a second thought. As the sun rose, I made my decision. I wouldn't be a passive participant in her deception any longer. When she stepped out of the hotel that morning, hand in hand with Nick, I confronted her in the parking lot. "Molly," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "We need to talk." Her face paled as she saw me, her hand slipping from Nick's. "Billy, I can explain." "Don't," I interrupted. "I've heard enough." The words I had rehearsed all night came out with surprising ease. "I want a divorce." For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight of her lies was no longer mine to carry. The words hung in the air like a guillotine, sharp and final. Molly's face twisted in shock, her usual composure shattered. Nick, standing awkwardly beside her, looked anywhere but at me. I didn't care about him. This was about Molly and me, about the betrayal that had unraveled everything we had built together. "Billy, wait," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Please, let me explain." "Explain?" I said, my voice low but firm. "Explain how you lied to my face, how you snuck around, how you turned our marriage into a joke." "Go ahead, Molly. I'm listening." Tears welled up in her eyes as she reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "Don't," I warned. "Don't try to make this better. You've already made your choice." Nick mumbled something about giving us space and shuffled away like a coward, leaving Molly alone in the parking lot with me. She watched him go, her eyes darting back to me as though searching for a lifeline. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she said, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean for it to happen." "Didn't mean for what to happen?" I snapped. "For you to cheat. For you to destroy our marriage. Or for me to find out." She opened her mouth to respond but closed it again, unable to find the words. That silence was more damning than anything she could have said. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "I'll have the papers drawn up," I said flatly. "You can expect to hear from my lawyer by Monday." "Billy, no," she pleaded, stepping toward me. "Don't do this. We can fix it. I still love you." Her words hit me like a slap. "Love?" I echoed bitterly. "You call this love? Sneaking around with him while I'm at home, trusting you? No, Molly. Whatever this is, it's not love." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, her tears falling silently onto the pavement. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The drive home was a blur. My thoughts raced, bouncing between anger, sadness, and disbelief. By the time I pulled into the driveway, exhaustion had set in. The house felt eerily quiet, as though it already knew Molly wouldn't be coming back. I sat on the couch, staring at the wedding photo hanging on the wall. We had looked so happy that day, so full of promise and hope. Now, the image felt like a cruel reminder of what could never be reclaimed. I knew I had to start planning my next steps. First, I contacted a lawyer, someone a friend had recommended. They agreed to meet with me the following week to discuss the divorce process. The thought of untangling our lives, of dividing everything we had built together, was overwhelming. But I knew there was no other way. Over the next few days, I threw myself into work, using it as a distraction from the chaos in my personal life. But no matter how busy I tried to keep myself, the memories kept creeping in. The way Molly used to laugh at my jokes, the nights we spent planning our future, the little notes she'd leave in my lunchbox. It all felt like a cruel joke now, tainted by her betrayal. By Wednesday, the news had started to spread. A mutual friend called to check on me, her voice filled with concern. "I heard about you and Molly," she said hesitantly. "I'm so sorry, Billy. Are you okay?" I forced a laugh. "As okay as I can be, I guess." "Do you want to talk about it?" she offered. "Or maybe grab a drink?" I appreciated the gesture, but I wasn't ready to open up. "Thanks, but I'm good. Just trying to take things one day at a time." She didn't push, and for that, I was grateful. The truth was, I wasn't ready to share my pain with anyone yet. It felt too raw, too personal. That weekend, I started packing Molly's things. Each item I placed in a box felt like a small victory, a step toward reclaiming my space. Her clothes, her books, the little trinkets she had collected over the years, they all went into the boxes, ready to be sent wherever she chose to land. As I packed, I found a photo album buried in the back of the closet. Flipping through it, I was struck by how happy we had once been. Vacations, birthdays, random candid shots, it was all there, a testament to the life we had shared. I almost closed the album and put it away, but something made me keep flipping. Toward the back, I found a photo of the two of us at a party, surrounded by friends. Molly was beaming, her arm wrapped around me. But in the background, just out of focus, stood Nick. I hadn't noticed him before, but now his presence felt glaringly obvious. How long had he been there, lurking on the edges of our life, waiting for his moment to strike? I slammed the album shut and tossed it into a box, my hands shaking with anger. This wasn't just about Molly's betrayal anymore, it was about the life I had thought we were building together, the trust she had shattered. On Sunday, Molly showed up at the house. I didn't want to see her, but she insisted. "Please, Billy," she said, standing on the porch with red-rimmed eyes. "Just let me talk to you." I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. "What do you want, Molly?" "I want to fix this," she said, her voice breaking. "I made a mistake. I know I messed up, but I love you. I want us to work through this." Her words felt hollow, like they were meant to ease her guilt rather than mend what was broken. "You don't get to decide that now," I said. "You made your choice when you walked into that hotel with him." "But I chose wrong," she pleaded. "I realize that now. Please, Billy, don't throw everything away." I shook my head, my resolve firm. "You threw it away, Molly. Not me." Her shoulders slumped as tears streamed down her face. "I'll do anything," she said. "Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. Just don't give up on us." I wanted to believe her, wanted to think that maybe there was a way back. But the trust was gone, and without it, there was no foundation to rebuild on. "I'm sorry, Molly," I said softly. "But it's over." She sobbed quietly for a moment before turning to leave. As I watched her walk away, a strange sense of relief washed over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. I closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a long, shaky breath. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: I wouldn't let this betrayal define me. It was time to move forward. The days following Molly's departure were strangely quiet, but not in a way that brought peace. The silence was heavy, a constant reminder of the absence that she had created. Yet, in that quiet, there was an opportunity, a chance to rebuild, to redefine who I was outside of being Molly's husband. The first step was to focus on the practicalities. I met with my lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Sandra. She laid out the steps for the divorce process with an efficiency that was both intimidating and comforting. "You've done the right thing by contacting me early," she said, flipping through a stack of papers. "We'll make this as smooth as possible, but I won't sugarcoat it. Divorce is rarely clean." "I'm not looking for clean," I replied, my voice steady. "I just want it to be over." Sandra nodded, her pen gliding over the paper. "Do you want to contest anything? The house, joint accounts?" "The house is mine," I said firmly. "She can have whatever else she wants, but the house stays with me." Sandra paused, then gave me a small smile. "That's fair. Let's make sure we lock that in." With the legal wheels in motion, I turned my attention to the house. It was full of memories, some beautiful, some haunting, but it was also mine now. I started with the bedroom, stripping the sheets and replacing them with new ones in a color Molly would have hated. Small changes, but they felt monumental. As I worked, I found more traces of her: a forgotten scarf draped over a chair, a half-empty bottle of her perfume on the dresser. Each item felt like a relic of a life that no longer belonged to me. I packed them away methodically, boxing them up and setting them by the door for her to collect. My evenings were the hardest. Without Molly's presence, the house felt cavernous. The TV became my companion, its mindless chatter filling the void. I tried reaching out to friends, but their pitying looks and awkward attempts at comfort only made me feel more alone. One night, as I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, I came across an ad for a local gym. It was a small, family-owned place, not one of those glossy corporate gyms with wall-to-wall mirrors. Something about it appealed to me. Maybe it was the simplicity, or maybe it was the need to channel my restless energy into something productive. The gym became my sanctuary. I threw myself into workouts with a fervor I hadn't felt in years. The rhythm of weights clanging, the steady thud of my sneakers on the treadmill, it was a release, a way to escape the storm inside my head. The owner, a middle-aged man named Carlos, took me under his wing. "You've got a lot of anger," he said one evening as I pounded the heavy bag. "Good. Use it. But don't let it consume you." I nodded, wiping the sweat from my face. Carlos didn't ask questions about why I was there or what I was running from. He just pushed me to keep moving, to keep going. It wasn't just the physical changes that surprised me, it was the mental clarity. With every drop of sweat, I felt lighter, freer. I started sleeping better, waking up with a sense of purpose that had been missing for a long time. One afternoon, as I was leaving the gym, I bumped into an old friend from college. Her name was Emma, and we hadn't seen each other in years. She was as vibrant as I remembered, her smile warm and genuine. "Billy Harrison," she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. "It's been forever. How are you?" I hesitated, unsure how much to share. "I'm figuring things out," I said finally. "How about you?" She nodded knowingly, as though she could read between the lines. "Same here. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it?" We ended up grabbing coffee and talking for hours. Emma had recently gone through a divorce herself, and her perspective was both refreshing and reassuring. She didn't sugarcoat the pain, but she also reminded me that there was life on the other side of it. "You're going to be okay," she said as we parted ways. "It'll take time, but you'll get there." Her words stayed with me as I drove home. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope, a small but powerful reminder that this wasn't the end of my story. As the weeks turned into months, I began to rebuild. I redecorated the house, adding my own touches to each room. I joined a book club at the local library, rediscovering a love for reading that I hadn't indulged in years. I even started volunteering at a community center, helping kids with their homework. It was fulfilling in a way I hadn't expected, a reminder that I was still capable of making a difference. Molly tried reaching out a few times, sending me texts and leaving voicemails. At first, I ignored them, unsure of what she wanted or if I was ready to face her again. But one day, I listened to a message she left. "Billy, I need to talk to you. Please. Just once. I know I've hurt you, and I don't expect forgiveness, but I can't leave things like this." Her voice was shaky, filled with regret. I debated for days before finally agreeing to meet her at a cafe downtown. When she walked in, she looked like a shadow of the woman I once knew. Her confidence was gone, replaced by a hesitancy that seemed foreign to her. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sitting down across from me. "What do you want, Molly?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She sighed, wringing her hands. I wanted to apologize. For everything. For the lies, for Nick, for throwing away what we had. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to say it." Her words hung in the air, heavy with sincerity. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the love we once shared, but it was quickly replaced by the reality of her betrayal. "I appreciate the apology," I said finally. "But it doesn't change anything." "I know," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry." As she left, I felt a strange mix of sadness and closure. Her apology didn't heal the wound she had caused, but it allowed me to take another step forward. For the first time, I felt like I could let go of the anger and resentment that had been weighing me down. Reclaiming myself wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick. But with each passing day, I felt a little stronger, a little more whole. I had lost a part of myself in my marriage, but now, I was rediscovering who I was, and that person was worth fighting for. Months had passed, and life was finally beginning to feel normal again. The house was fully mine, transformed with new colors, furniture, and even a small garden I had started in the backyard. It felt like a symbol of growth, a place where I could nurture something and watch it flourish, a stark contrast to the barren remains of my marriage. Emma and I had started spending more time together. What began as casual coffee meetups had blossomed into something deeper. She had become my anchor, someone who understood the pain of betrayal without needing an explanation. With her, I found laughter again, moments of joy that I thought were lost forever. One chilly autumn morning, as I sat on the porch sipping coffee and watching the leaves fall, the mail arrived. Amidst the usual stack of bills and advertisements was a letter with Molly's handwriting on the envelope. My chest tightened as I stared at it, unsure if I should even open it. Curiosity got the better of me. I slid a finger under the flap and pulled out the letter. It was handwritten, the words slightly smudged, as though written in haste, or perhaps through tears. "Dear Billy. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I hope you'll read this. I don't deserve your time or attention after what I've done, but there are things I need to say. First, thank you for meeting me that day at the cafe. Your strength and grace in the face of my betrayal have haunted me ever since. I've replayed that conversation 1,000 times, wishing I had the power to go back and change things, but I know I can't. There's something I didn't tell you then, something I couldn't bring myself to say. I've been unwell, Billy. It started as fatigue, then headaches, and then the tests. The doctors confirmed it a few weeks ago, stage 4 ovarian cancer. The irony isn't lost on me. I broke your heart, destroyed our life together, and now I'm being handed a punishment I can't escape. Part of me feels like I deserve it, but the truth is, I'm scared. I've never been this scared in my life. I'm writing to you not to ask for forgiveness, I know I don't deserve it, but to thank you. Despite everything, you were the best part of my life. The years we spent together were real to me, even if I didn't show it in the end. You loved me when I didn't deserve it, and that love was more than I ever could have asked for. I don't have much time left. The doctors have been clear about that. I wanted you to hear this from me, not through some mutual friend or an obituary. You deserve the truth, even if it's coming far too late. I hope you find happiness, Billy. I hope you build a life filled with love, laughter, and everything you deserve. I hope you never think of me with anger or regret. Please know that, in my own broken way, I loved you. I still do. Molly. The letter slipped from my hands as I sat back in my chair, the air suddenly too thick to breathe. I read it again, and then a third time, as though the words might change if I stared at them long enough. But they didn't. Molly was dying. The anger I had carried for so long felt misplaced now, overshadowed by something deeper, a sadness that sat heavy in my chest. Memories of our time together flooded my mind, our first date, the way her laugh used to light up a room, the mornings we spent tangled in each other's arms. Those memories felt sharper now, their edges cutting through the walls I had built around my heart. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, unsure of what to do. Should I reach out to her? Offer her some kind of support in her final days? Or would that only reopen wounds that were just beginning to heal? The questions weighed on me, each one heavier than the last. That night, Emma called. Her voice was warm and familiar, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her about the letter. "You okay?" she asked, sensing my hesitation. "Yeah," I lied. "Just a long day." We talked for a while, her laughter easing the ache in my chest. But when I hung up, the sadness returned, stronger than before. 2 weeks later, another envelope arrived in the mail. This one wasn't from Molly, it was from a law firm. Inside was a letter informing me of Molly's passing and a copy of her will. She had left me something, her engagement ring, along with a handwritten note. "Billy. I didn't know how to say goodbye, so I'll let this speak for me. This ring was a symbol of everything we hoped to build together. I know I failed you, but I hope you'll keep it as a reminder of the good times we shared. I don't want my mistakes to overshadow the love we had. Thank you for being the best part of my life. With love. Molly." I stared at the ring, its small diamond catching the light. It felt heavy in my hand, not because of its size but because of what it represented, a life that could have been, a love that had been tarnished but never fully extinguished. That night, I sat in the garden under the stars, the ring clutched tightly in my palm. Tears came, unbidden and unstoppable, as I let myself mourn, not just for Molly, but for the life we had dreamed of and lost. In the weeks that followed, I found a strange sense of peace. Molly's betrayal had hurt me deeply, but her final words reminded me of the person she had been before everything fell apart. I carried her memory with me, not as a source of pain, but as a reminder of the resilience of love, even when it is flawed. Life went on. Emma and I grew closer, and the house began to feel like home again. But every now and then, I would catch a glimpse of that ring, safely tucked away in a drawer, and I would remember. Some wounds never fully heal, but they teach us to cherish the moments that matter. And in the quiet of those moments, I found my strength.